My husband had an affair and quit his job as a result 2 months ago, and he still didn't think to tell me about those little unimportant details. When I finally confronted him about this, he got on his knees at my feet and said,
I didn't mean to have an affair. Please forgive me.
"Don't play games with me, Mr. Tackett. You still were with another woman, and serious or not, that is the only thing that counts. I can't be married to you anymore." Then my husband began to tell me a shocking truth. This is the story of how a very nice relationship as a married couple deteriorated in mere days, and how he was repaid for his betrayal. My name is Emma, and I'm a 30-year-old part-time housewife. I work at a small local business as head of public reception, and I love my job. My husband is Omar, and he works at a branch office for a food company. He and I have been married for 5 years, and those 5 years were very pleasant. Eventually, though, something changed at his job that made him irritated. So much so that whenever he opened his mouth, it was always about the same stupid thing.
That's Sanders. He frickin' did.
That was literally all he ever said. Complaints about one Mr. Jeremy Sanders. This was Omar's boss at work, and he made it seem like he was making his life completely miserable. A year ago, Mr. Sanders was transferred from a different department, and ever since that time, Omar had not been getting along well with him. Just recently, Mr. Sanders told Omar to redo a proposal he'd submitted after spending quite a bit of time and effort on it. Needless to say, Omar didn't like that.
He doesn't like anything immediately when I say the project was my idea. He's always so condescending and sarcastic to me, while he's nice to everyone else.
I'm sure he expects so much more from you compared to the others, honey.
It's not like that, that's for damn sure. He just doesn't frickin' like me. It's just power harassment at this point, honestly.
Omar's frustration didn't seem to subside even after quite a while. A while later, however, his mood shifted from miserable to downright jolly, and he started talking more about lots of different things. When I asked him why he seemed to be so happy now, he answered with the biggest of smiles.
Sanders has been in the hospital since yesterday. Might as well bite the dust now, eh?
Oh, dear, that's too bad. I wonder if we should go visit him. You know, pay our respects and our wishes for a good recovery. My husband laughed and said,
We don't have to visit him. It must have been a sign from the sky saying, Yup, you had enough of him for a while. Huge lucky break, I guess.
In a nutshell, Omar is very self-centered. At best, he's honest with himself. At worst, he's downright selfish. When he has a day off, he spends the whole day at home, in leisure and relaxation. He sometimes streams himself playing video games on his computer in his room. And I sometimes even get invited to participate in some of his ideas for what he calls content creation. I always love doing those things with him, but I definitely would do it every day. But I definitely wouldn't do it every day. And as a person who likes to do all household chores, I was not dissatisfied with my husband's lifestyle. Omar is a kind man who literally cannot say no when asked for a favor. He is always a person who can be trusted and relied upon by others. I loved him for this. But I also loved him because he was like a child that had kept his child within very alive as he grew up. It reminded me of my baby brother, who I cherished more than anything else in the world. I wanted him to stay that way forever. We both work, and our rule is to stay out of each other's private time, except for when he invites me on his streams, as I mentioned. Those happen perhaps once or twice a month, too. We didn't know each other's income, and we split the cost of rent, food, and utilities 50-50. We may seem like an odd couple to the outside world, but we loved the foundations upon which our relationship was built. We do what we can for each other, and we give each other credit for our roles in the household. That's what makes it a good marriage for us. However, as time went on, I was beginning to feel that we were having fewer and fewer conversations, and that all I was hearing from his mouth were complaints about his boss. I can't stand it if things go on like this. Divorce at a ripe old age is a legitimate possibility at this point. Goddamn. With this in mind, I decided to make lunchboxes for us to eat at our jobs. I thought that it would be a good opportunity for us to talk to each other more. And within the first week, I saw a huge improvement in our conversations. They had been increasing steadily in frequency and in enthusiasm.
Your lunch was delicious again today, honey. Thanks for that.
He handed me an empty lunchbox as he smiled. Well then, to thank you for making my entire week, I'll make your favorite tomorrow, a hamburger steak lunchbox. This had become an important conversation between us now. The next day, I woke up early and made his lunchbox. Omar, I'll leave your lunchbox here, so don't forget to take it with you when you go to work, okay? I called out to my husband, but when I checked his room, he had left a note saying he had already left for work. I tried to call him on his cell phone, but there was no answer. What could I do? After maybe a few minutes of thinking, I decided to deliver the lunchbox to his office. Since I had my shift a little later on in the day that day, I had plenty of time to go to his office. Maybe hang out at a little cafe to have a nice drink with my lunchbox before heading off to work. I got my stuff ready and locked the door behind me. When I arrived at his office, I told the receptionist my business there. Hi, I'm the wife of Mr. Omar Tackett. I'm here to deliver something my husband left behind at home. Ah, yes, of course. Please wait a moment. I waited, unknowing that I would receive a completely unexpected response. It was so sudden and so surprising, I literally froze where I stood. About Mr. Omar Tackett, it seems he's already resigned for personal reasons. What? But that's not possible. I'm sorry, could you please check again? I'm terribly sorry, ma'am, but I had the same reaction as you did when I first discovered this. I've already checked with the department for which he'd been working, and there's no mistake. Mr. Tackett does not work for us anymore. I couldn't comprehend what the hell I was hearing. My husband should have gone to work this morning as usual. An obvious question bubbled to the surface of my mind. When did he stop going to work? And then another. Why? No matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't find an answer that made sense to me as to why he left his job. The receptionist confirmed he left and that he wasn't fired. Excuse me. Could you tell me why my husband left the company? Then, for a moment, an awkward atmosphere drifted across the room. The receptionist was visibly troubled, as though she knew something she did not want to tell me. After a while, though, although her reluctance never faltered, perhaps the sympathy for keeping me in the dark prevailed. Just to be absolutely sure, I just asked Mr. Sanders, Mr. Tackett's boss up until he left, the basic gist of the events leading up to his resignation. It was about 2 months ago when, apparently, he had an unfaithful relationship with a married woman working in the same department, and he was AWOL for quite some time thereafter. He could no longer be contacted through phone calls, messages, or emails, and so we eventually acknowledged him as a former employee who had resigned for personal reasons. That didn't help at all. Okay, it did eventually, but in that moment when I discovered the truth for the first time, with the shock and the mental torment that ensued. It didn't. I couldn't fathom what was being said to me whatsoever, and I felt as if time had stopped for a moment. I'm sorry. I literally do not know anything about this. Thank you very much for telling me. The receptionist gave me a nod of compassion in response, and as I started mumbling to myself as I turned around, I started to walk away in a daze. Then I heard someone calling me from a ways away behind me. When I turned around, a man who seemed to be in his 50s was calling to me as he approached. He was a big man, with a bit of a paunch, but with muscular arms, and a great majestic beard of flowing ginger. His eyes had that familiar twinkle of kindness that I see in Dad, and he reeked of charisma. But he had a disproportionately high voice for his size. He sounded a little like Rex the dinosaur in Toy Story. In retrospect, he seemed a very respectable man, but at that moment, I could only feel fear and confusion as he approached. How did he know my name?
Excuse me, miss, but are you Emma, Omar Tackett's wife?
Yes, sir, I am.
My name is Sanders. Jeremy Sanders. I'm sure Omar has mentioned me before. Miss Fisher here just inquired about your husband, and I was wondering if you might be his wife, so I called on you. I'm sorry for being so sudden. I would like a word with you about your husband, though. May I have a moment of your time?
As soon as he said that, I felt something inside me crackle and burst. In the worst way possible, tears welled up against my will. I'm sorry. I knew my apology was barely audible, and I rushed outside of the building. I just wanted to get the hell out of there before I had a breakdown. All the way home, I kept thinking and fighting tears. Was Omar really having an affair? Did he feel guilty for cheating on me and deceiving me for 2 months? I couldn't hide my shock enough to go to work that day, and decided to call in sick and take the day off from work. I instead spent the day alone at home, with my dark thoughts keeping me company. After much consideration, I decided not to tell my husband about the incident. If I asked him about it directly, he might deceive me further. I would have to confirm what I'd been told, little by little. I decided to wait for my husband to come home and act as though nothing had happened. He came home at the usual time and was eating his dinner with a nonchalant look on his face. I dove into my little experiment. How's work going, honey?
Oh, same old, same old.
Oh, by the way, your boss, Mr. Sanders, was it? You told me he was in the hospital maybe 2 weeks ago. Has he been dismissed yet?
No, I think he's still in the hospital. But wait, why are you talking about that old bastard? I would rather talk about literally anything else.
He went to take a bath as he said so. His stride seemed strangely edgy. It was very quick, as though he were trying to subtly run away from me and my questions. So this is how you've been deceiving me, huh? Omar, darling. I just saw Mr. Sanders that day, and he looked very healthy. Omar obviously didn't know that. That pretty much proved that he was no longer one of the company. And then more dangerous questions started pouring in. The most ominous was, where did he go every morning when he left the house? I decided to take action and find out for myself. The next day, he got up at the usual time, got ready, and left the house to go to work, supposedly. I decided to follow him to see what he was doing. Where the hell was he going? Was he job hunting, maybe? That's what I thought, and that's what I hoped he was doing. But the reality showed me that the world can be a cruel, cruel place indeed. Omar immediately headed for an old apartment building near the outskirts of the city. It seemed he knew how to get there so well he could have done it blindfolded. Once he arrived, he walked up the stairs as though he was used to it, and then started walking down the corridor on the 4th floor. Standing in front of a door, my husband knocked on a door halfway down, and when the door opened, an older woman came out to greet him. It was at this point that I had begun to suspect he was still having that stupid affair of his, so I hurriedly activated the camera on my cell phone. I was right. And the next thing I knew was that he was in passionate embrace with this woman. My overwhelming surprise and shock notwithstanding, I was able to take a few pictures that was of high clarity. He had been pretending to go to work every morning and went to the woman's apartment. He had been cheating on me all along. My mind was in a daze by that point, and my feet led me to the office where he used to work on their own. When I came back to reality, completely, I was standing in front of the main entrance to the building. I went to the receptionist, Miss Fisher, and asked for the name of the woman whom Omar was having an affair, but was told that due to laws against privacy violation of individual citizens, she would not tell me. Then, do you know who this person is? I said as I whipped up the photo I had just taken of Omar being together with the woman. I'm sorry, I cannot tell you who she is, even if I knew who she is. I'm so sorry, ma'am. There's nothing I can do to help you. That's what I was told. In retrospect, that was a respectful move on her part, but at the time, her unwillingness to be cooperative frustrated me. While I was wondering what to do next, as I tried frantically not to let my rage take over and call Miss Fisher a bunch of slurs, I heard a familiar voice calling me from behind. I turned around and saw it was Mr. Sanders, Omar's old boss.
Mrs. Tackett, we meet again. How are you feeling?
I am sorry for running off yesterday, sir. That was inappropriate of me. I was hoping you would recognize this woman, Mr. Sanders. When I showed him her picture, he gave me the last answer I expected.
She is my wife.
What?
We shouldn't talk here. It's not private. It's nearly lunchtime. Perhaps if you wait 10 minutes, we could grab a bite? I know a nice little cafe where they serve the most awesome waffles around here.
I accepted his offer, and so I sat down on a bench in the waiting lobby. After 10 minutes, as he said, right on the dot, he showed up again, this time with a stylish cowboy hat. We headed over to the cafe he recommended, sat ourselves down in the corner, and ordered 3 waffle platters, 2 of which were for him. Big man, big stomach, indeed. We then started to talk about the elephant in the room. It was actually only recently that I learned of my husband's infidelity, and that he had resigned from the company because of it.
I didn't realize that, ma'am. I can only imagine how you must be feeling. I don't blame you for running off yesterday. I'll be honest with you. I may look like a gorilla, but I have the heart of a damn bunny rabbit.
His sense of humor was energizing, to say the least. Mr. Sanders went on to tell me what he knew about the affair in a calm tone of voice. So apparently, about 2 months ago, he first discovered his wife's adultery, and when he called them both to his office to talk to them about his suspicions, they confirmed it readily. The both of them. He then confronted his wife with divorce documents that same afternoon. In response, she begged for his forgiveness, pathetically tearing up and pleading for mercy. She pressed him to get back together with her as well. However, the next day, he had discovered that his wife had run away with all the savings he had at home, and she had been missing ever since. Mr. Sanders had been looking for her for the better part of 6 weeks now, and he was losing sleep over the whole situation.
I thought about contacting you and telling you all of this before, but I've only seen photos of you shown to me by Omar, and I've never met you personally. I didn't want to impose on your busy schedule. On top of that, I think we both understand the shock and depression that comes with the realization We were betrayed by the one whom we thought could trust with our lives. Time passed of me being in a dark, heartbroken daze, and today is the day I was finally able to tell you.
So, you approached me when I came to the office yesterday when you had a hunch it could be me that inquired after Omar. Thank you for telling me everything, Mr. Sanders. You must be feeling a lot better now.
Call me Jeremy, Miss Tackett. And I can't tell you how relieved I feel. I feel more at ease than when I let loose the piss I've held in for a week.
Oh my, that much. And you may call me Emma, Jeremy. Now I will tell you what I know. In this manner, we exchanged information with each other and decided to raid the apartment together later on. On the day of the raid, Mr. Sanders showed up wearing that same cowboy hat and a bandana around his face, covering his beard. Just a precaution that no one would recognize him.
Shall we go in for the kill?
And then he knocked on the door of the room where Omar and his lover were thought to be. A few moments later,
Yes, coming.
as Omar opened the door and let the sunshine on his face,
Mr. Tackett, my boy. It's been a while.
Mr. Sanders took off his hat and bandana. Omar tried to close the door as he let loose a very girly scream, but Mr. Sanders, with those muscular arms of his, forcefully opened the door without giving a damn and rushed into the room, me scampering in after him. In the corner of the room, a man and a woman were hugging each other and trembling with terror.
So this is where you were this whole time, eh? Didn't think you'd stoop this low, I'll be honest, Holly. I hope you didn't think you'd get away with everything you've done after causing me so much trouble.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Honey, please forgive me.
This pigsty ain't the place to talk business, Missy. You're coming home with me, and we're having a talk. Mark my damn words.
The force with which he grabbed his wife by the collar and dragged her out of the room, kicking and screaming, was fearfully impressive. Omar, darling, help me. No, please, let me go. Help me. She was bawling, screaming, begging her lover for help. What a lover turned out to be. He just looked away and didn't even try to help her. Once outside, the woman's cries continued and gradually became inaudible. Now I was alone with my husband, and the strange atmosphere in the room was so cold it was sure to be approaching absolute zero. After a while, my husband opened his mouth and said something I could not have guessed he'd say in a million years.
Thank you, Emma.
What? Thank you for what? My husband approached my feet on all fours.
I'm done with my revenge. I guess you came for me, huh?
Revenge? What the hell do you mean? Then my husband started to tell me about the events leading up to his affair.
I cheated with Holly, but I never meant it to be serious at all. I just wanted to do something to bring Sanders down. So I approached the admitted whore of a woman, and then I found out she had all of his savings, so I decided to make her spend it all on me. She only gave me a little money, but look, there's about $2,000 right here in my pocket.
He reaches into his pants pocket and pulls out a rolled stack of liquid cash. Clutching the money, he attempts to touch my leg by reaching out a quivering hand. Don't touch me. I kicked him as hard as I could in the face. He went sprawling. He struggled to get back up as he cowered in pain. You've got to be kidding me. All you freaking did was get caught having an affair, quit your job, and get money from that bitch. What in the hell's name makes you think I'm going to accept that kind of money?
I'm just a victim of Sanders' harassment, Emma.
Do you really think that excuse will work against me? Okay, sure, you called it revenge, but in the process you destroyed a family. You betrayed my trust, and you had a legitimate affair. with sexual attributes and everything. And you didn't even tell me that you were gone from your job. You cheated on me for 2 months, and now you claim you're the victim in all this. Give me a freaking break.
I thought it would hurt you to tell you the truth. Forgive me, Emma. You're the only one I ever truly loved. Ever.
That's what he said as he got down on his knees again. You've been cheating on me for a long time, and now you tell me you love me? I can't stay married to you like this. Divorce me, or so help me, I will throw you in at the mercy of Sanders. I sent my last words to my husband, who stared at me with a face that was growing deathly pale. Adultery is not a crime, but what you did was a mortal sin, nonetheless. You will spend the rest of your life repenting for this heinous crime. With these words as a parting shot, I left the apartment, slamming the door behind me. After that, Omar and I divorced. Now a complete stranger to him, I demanded alimony from Mr. Tackett and the woman whom he had an affair with. Normally, I would not be able to demand alimony from my husband, who was unemployed and unable to pay his bills, but my in-laws found out about his betrayal and, being the kind sweethearts that they are, paid the whole amount of alimony to me in one lump sum. Mr. Tackett never had to pay alimony to me, but instead he has to pay back his parents. At the same time, Mr. Sanders also divorced with his cheating wife. He claimed alimony from her and her adulterous lover. Of course, at that time, he also demanded that she pay him back for all the money she took from his personal savings at home. And as of now, she is having a dispute with Mr. Tackett over that. She told him that she wanted him to return the money she spent on him, but Mr. Tackett retorted,
I'm just a victim here. I have no obligation to pay you back, Sanders.
That line of logic really makes me wonder what I ever saw in him as a man, and as someone with whom I would spend my life. I really don't care about any of that stupid bullshit anymore. I just can't keep dwelling on this kind of thing. Sure, it hurt to be betrayed by the one person I trusted with everything. But now that everything's now out of my way and out of my life, I can focus on what's important again. I'm still young, and I believe that one day I will meet someone who will really make me happy again. And I will do my best to stay cheerful and positive. I also wish the best to Mr. Sanders, whom I talk to occasionally, and may he also find the happiness that such a sweet man deserves.